Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine, and this week we heard about the first confirmed 50-pounder from upper Narragansett Bay. We're also hearing that in the canal there's some big fish to be caught, but the guys that are getting them are working hard for them. We're hearing about a good sea bass bite in central Long Island Sound. And lastly, there's just that weakfish bite in upper Narragansett Bay just hasn't quit. There's just more and more weakfish and more people getting in on it. It's really great to see. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's web fishing forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Well, we're going to start off in Massachusetts and we're going to go up to the North Shore. So what I'm hearing up there is that striped bass are in, and there's good numbers of a wide range of sizes. So we're hearing about a lot of schoolie fish all around Plum Island and at the mouth of the Merrimack River, especially at first light. But more and more keepers are showing up in the reports now, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to find out that there was some 40-inch fish being taken up there. I haven't heard that report, but just call it a hunch. As you head down from there, kind of through the North Shore and into Boston, it's pretty much the same story. A lot of schoolie fish, a lot of those fish up to 30 inches mixing in. I talked to Pete Belson from Belson's Bait and Tackle, and he said the North River has had the same fish. There's a lot of like that 2-foot range, 24, 26-inch fish there. Decent number of keeper-sized fish, and again, I bet if you went there at night and put some time in on the drop and tide, you might find yourself, a 38-inch or 40-inch fish in that area. Most of these fish are being caught on paddle tails during the day. Also some top water stuff like a jumping minnow or a hydro pencil, something like that. The night guys are doing best on swimmers, SP minnows, hydro minnows, red fins, things like that. That seems to be the story in that area of Massachusetts. As you head out onto the Cape, we're hearing now that the north end, the Cape Cod Bay side of the Cape is starting to see a lot more fish and a lot more bigger fish. So what I always think of when I hear that that's happening is Barnstable Harbor. There's got to be fish starting to pile into Barnstable Harbor, and if they're not, they're going to be there very soon. That bite usually depends on the mackerel. I have heard that the mackerel have been staying deep, so we'll have to see. But we have had a lot of that north wind just pushing everything down, so it shouldn't be too long before something happens over there. As you come around the tip of the Cape and then down along the outer beaches, the bite's kind of taking a couple steps back for stripers. It's been mostly small fish, and it's really slowed down. It may be a product of all that wind and rain we had this past weekend. Hard to say for sure. The people that I've been hearing about catching bass on that side of the Cape have been doing it up inside the estuaries. So Pleasant Bay, Nauset Inlet, some of the smaller estuaries also are holding fish. Most of these fish are topping out at like 31 inches or so. A lot of schoolies in there, but the action's been pretty decent. As you come around sort of into the Vineyard Sound part of Cape Cod, it's been more of the same. A lot of smaller bass and a smattering of medium to medium large bluefish, like up to 10 pounds. And out in the vineyard, they still are feeling that they're a little behind. There's some keeper fish out there. There's a lot of schoolie fish in the ponds, but I think they were expecting a bigger change 2 weeks ago, so they're kind of stuck in limbo out there. The place where it gets really interesting striper-wise is in Buzzards Bay, and it's mostly for the boat crowd. There's a lot of bunker schools out there, and these fish are definitely relating to these schools of bunker. There's a lot of 30 to 40-inch fish around, and guys are getting them on, live line bunker. They're getting them on top water plugs like a big spook like the dock. They're also getting them on big metal lips. Typically, the metal lip bite is more in the dark, but if you use a deep diving metal lip, you can pull some fish off the schools that way. Now, I'm saying that there's a lot of 30 to 40-inch fish, but there's also some legit giants out there. I don't have any specifics on size, but I have heard rumors of fish pushing 50 pounds. So that suffice it to say, there's some good fish out in Buzzards Bay, and at some point, they're going to go through the canal. The funny thing is that they didn't go through the canal when everyone would quote-unquote say they were supposed to. The breaking tides fell flat. But the afternoon is starting to give up some fish at the west end. And the hardcore guys jigging at night have been pulling some 30 to 40 pound fish. Now, this is not like a guarantee. You're not going to go down there with a jig and line up with 100 guys and everyone's going to get a 40 pounder. It just isn't like that. The guys that I know that are getting these fish are putting in a lot of time. I talked to Tony at Mako's Bait and Tackle, and he said that, some fish showed up at the West End one day this week. Someone posted a picture on Instagram, and then there was 100 guys there the next night, and there was not a fish to be had. And that's just sort of the story. That's kind of the way things have been. The best way to get yourself one of those fish is just to go down there and put the time in. And one of the things that you can really do to help yourself is just move around until you see some bait or until you see some fish breaking. But if you don't see fish breaking, you really need to just move over to the jig. That's far and away the best way to pull a fish out of the canal when there's not like an all-out melee going on. So get your big stick ready and, go bounce some lead. So that's the striper story in Massachusetts. The other thing that's been really good is the sea bass bite. Mostly Buzzards Bay and then heading out toward the Vineyard. But also, in the Vineyard Sound area too, and kind of getting out toward Chatham. The sea bass bite has been very good. There's a lot of shorts, but there's a lot of solid fish in the mix. Most guys are doing it with bait, but you can get them on jigs too. They're pretty aggressive. And we've been hearing about a lot of fish in that 3 to 4 pound range. Nice solid keeper sea bass. And that's kind of been the story. Although there's also been more and more porgies showing up, or scup showing up in those catches. So you can put together a pretty good mixed bag out there. And the effort, you don't need to put in a lot of effort to do it in most cases. Let's see, did I hear any fluke news? No, the fluke bite seems to be on the slow side in Massachusetts. I have not heard of anything concrete. Couple bycatch fish here with the guys fishing for sea bass, but I still haven't heard about a solid bite taking place. And I guess that's just the story. So I got a report here from James Jukes up on the North Shore, and he started his report off with a little ritual that he and his friends do on Memorial Day. He said, over the long Memorial Day weekend, we like to take some time to honor those who gave the ultimate. What we do is before we make our first cast, is we stop and say a little prayer for the soldiers who gave their lives to keep us free, and then we go out and try to honor them by catching a nice fish. He said the fishing north of Gloucester has been tough, and the weather really made it tough over the weekend. But he said they stuck it out and they were rewarded. He said that most of the fish that they had were under keeper size, but the bite was decent after they found the fish. And they had a handful of slot fish before the night was over. And he said he's looking forward now to 4 days on Cuddy Hunk, and he'll check in with us next week to let us know how he did. And then moving over to Red Top with Greg McSherry, good friend of mine. He said, as of Friday before the long weekend, word was that there were lots of pogies still milling around and some really big bass in them. The folks who were successful were throwing metal lip swimmers, big spooks, or snagged pogies. And he reminded everyone, just remember, you can't legally snag and drop anymore. You've got to take that pogie off and put it on a circle hook and send it back out there. There was not much word on the sea bass bite from the weekend, mostly because of the weather. But I'm sure it will be red hot again this week. Historically, these first 10 days of June are the peak fishery. And it's a really good time to target that 5+ pounder. There has not been much to report fluke-wise, he says. And then he said in the canal, there was a few nice fish taken over the weekend, but most of the guys coming into the shop are coming in with a long face. He said if you're down at the canal and you're not seeing bait moving around, you need to move around on your bike and find some bait. Or start throwing the jig and just bouncing, just move and make a few casts and move and make a few casts and try to try to locate some fish on the bottom. So that's basically what we've got going on in Massachusetts. Over in Rhode Island, again, it's all about the striped bass. We're hearing about, it's funny, it's like a break. Up inside Narragansett Bay, it's all big fish and no small fish. And then out on the beaches out front, it's all small fish and not very many big fish. So up in the bay, we've just got tons and tons of pogies. I was out there today, and I mean the schools of bunker are everywhere. You can't go 100 yards without seeing them. These fish are relating to the bunker schools, but it's funny too. These fish are also setting up in certain areas, mostly in the northern part of the bay, and they're starting to trend more toward Mount Hope. But they're not every bunker school has fish on it. It's just one of those funny things. And the other thing is most of the time these fish are not hitting plugs. If you want to get one of these big fish, you've got to be fishing live bunker. You can live line them, and that is most of the time successful. But the way that most guys are catching them is trolling live bunker, 2 behind the boat on a short lead. And they're just going fast enough to keep those bunkers swimming and just keeping them swimming in a straight line. For whatever reason, that seems to be the key. Big 9-0 circle hook in their nostrils and just swimming them along. And that's accounted for some really big fish, including that 56-pounder that I mentioned in the lead. I'm not going to show a picture of that fish. I'm not going to mention the name of the guy who caught it. That was a commercial fish, and I don't know. I just think because all of us recreational guys have to release a fish of that size, and just better off to mention that it happened and leave it at that. But there are a lot of big ones up in the bay, and bunker is the way to catch them. If you get out there on a snotty day with some rough water and some clouds and some rain, you might be able to pull 1 or 2 up on the dock. The only other way I've heard of guys getting fish up in the bay, big ones, is on bunker spoons. Out front, like I said, a lot of schoolies. That's from Newport and then all the way along South County, breachways, all that. Most of those fish are up to 30 inches, so there are some keepers mixed in. We are starting to hear about a few more larger fish, like I got these pictures from John Duma. This was over the weekend in the terrible weather. He said there were bunker schools kind of flipping around. He was at one of the breachways, and there were bunker everywhere, but he was throwing just I think he said 1.5 ounce bucktail, and he was able to pull up 2 20-pound class stripers. So it shows you that, there's some decent fish around, and you don't have to be throwing something that looks like a bunker to catch them. But most of the fish that are being caught in that area are on the smaller side, and there's still those bruiser bluefish mixed in. The size is getting smaller and smaller. We're seeing a lot more of like 5 to 7 pound bluefish in the mix, and the bigger fish now are kind of topping out like 13 pounds. But there's always that chance of getting another one of those monsters like we had a few weeks ago. But all of the bigger fish, like with any consistency, it's been up in the bay, and I think that's going to stay that way until that water up in the bay hits 70 degrees. It was 62 today, so we've got a little ways to go. If you're looking for a place to go to look for a big bass and you're in Rhode, I'd just stay in the bay. I think that's where your best shot's going to be. Fluking is kind of status quo. It's about the same as it was last week. Most of the guys are going to the windmills. The other half of most of the guys are going to the beaches off of South County. Again, the guys that I talk to who are doing the most damage are blazing their own trails. They're looking on the chart and finding some spots that look fishy, and they're fishing, 40 feet of water. That seems to be the median zone where most of these fish are. And that's pretty much it. There's so many shorts to weed through. I was talking to Andrew from Fisher Factory earlier. He's out at Block right now. And he said, they got a handful of keepers, but man, they've been pulling the shorts over the rail by the bushel. So it's just a waiting game. It's just an endurance test. You just got to be out there playing the game. And, it's about 15 to 20 shorts per one keeper. That's just the way it is. Sea bass is closed at Rhode Island, so we don't need to talk about that. The last thing that we're going to talk about is the weakfish. Weak fishing again has just been amazing. It's pretty much all up in the bay. There's a few, popping up here and there in the ponds and stuff like that. But anywhere like an estuary dumps into the bay, say from like Warwick north, and then kind of draw a line straight over to the Tiverton line and go north from there. That seems to be where most of the weak fish action is. Haven't heard of any like really big ones, but fish up to like 25 inches, which is a solid fish. And when the guys are getting on them, they're getting on a lot of them. You're going to hear from my buddy Christian in a minute. And, he had a day last week where between him and a couple buddies on the boat, they had several dozen weakfish. It's been mostly paddle-tail shads, and pink has been a really hot color. Although anything bright, chartreuse or a solid white, they've all been doing really well. And then the only thing you have to make sure of is that you just got a wide array of jig heads. I really like these inshore slam jig heads from Owner. But you got to have everything from like quarter all the way up to 3/4, because these fish, they don't call them tide runners for nothing. They like moving tide. So when you're on the drift and the tide's moving hard, you gotta have the right weight, and you just gotta match it up with the right size bait and get it down there. And unfortunately, we didn't find any weakfish today, but that seems to be the key. It's just keeping that bait right on the bottom. He said most of the time those fish were within inches of the bottom. So actually, why don't we talk to Christian now? I'm going to throw it over to him, and he's going to give you a short report. So take it away, Christian.
Hey there, this is Captain Christian Awe with Awestruck Fishing here in Rhode Island, with a report here for May 28th, 2021. The Narragansett Bay is still full of bait, including large schools of pogies. The bass are difficult to catch this time of year unless you are, using live line techniques. You really got to know your spot. You got to be there first thing in the morning, prepped and ready to go. There's a small bite window, but besides the bass, there's plentiful bluefish. And today was some of the best weak fishing I've ever seen. If you find a school of weakfish, you normally find a lot of them. And we had a lot of fun out there today with them, catching them on all kinds of tackle, fly rods, small soft plastics, paddle tails, zoom flukes, little bucktail jigs, super fun light tackle fish. A unique day out there on the water, especially considering we got a big storm rolling in here through this weekend. So nice to get out on the water and have a great day.
And then the guys from Watch Hill Outfitters also had some stuff to add from the western end of the state, Watch Hill area. So let's toss it over to them.
We're currently seeing a lot of squid that's coming in to the store. We actually pack out a beautiful pack. We call it a fat pack. Really large local squid. These guys were swimming around last week. Some of the other things that we use when we're fluke fishing around, fluking is definitely starting up and getting better and better each week. A little bit of a cold snap last week, but that's totally going away. The guys were out there today catching some nice keepers. Some of the jigs that are local to us are these guys right here. We call them a jackpot digger jig. Commercial Fisherman designed them a while back. Really great guy, but very effective. I kind of like the pink white. It's one of my favorites, and I tend to use the 5 or 6 ounce right off the reef. Definitely holds bottom, does a great job. The other thing that we have going on as far as fishing right here locally is we still have a lot of bluefish going on. The guys are catching them up and down the breachways, right out front on the reefs. I'm not sure how long it's going to last, or maybe it's going to last for the whole summer. We'll see. The other thing that we have going on is the slot bass that we're seeing. Some of the commercial guys are doing really well, and the recreational guys are doing extremely well. They're chasing sand eels, they're chasing the squid that we're catching. Definitely a great time to be out on the water. Hope you get out there.
And that's what I've got for you today in Rhode Island. As we cross the line into Connecticut, the striper bite has been kind of so-so still in the Eastern Sound. I don't know what the deal is. There's still fish in the Thames, all the way up the whole length of the Thames. There are fish, but not a lot of keeper-sized fish. Just a lot of schoolies. Same deal in Niantic. There's fish in the bay. There's fish up in the river. But again, not a lot of keeper-sized fish there either. One of the places that has some consistent action is the Race, and also over in the Gut. Gut has more blues mixed in with the bass. But even out in the Race, most of these guys are not breaking like 33 inches. And, the lion's share of these fish are 25 inches and under. If you want to target bigger fish, it starts to get a little bit more interesting around the Connecticut River. The Connecticut River water temps came up last week and pushed a lot of the fish that were up in the river out. But there are some good fish around the mouth of the river, and even some big ones. It's been kept pretty quiet, so I don't have a lot of details, but I know that there have been a few really nice fish taken in the lower river, and then kind of heading out Cornfield and Duck Island, that area. There's been some bigger fish around that area. The most reliable big fish fishing has been in the Western Sound. We'll talk to Max at the end of this whole thing. He'll give you some details on that. He got some really nice fish this week out there. But another spot that's still producing is the mouth of the Housatonic. There's been more and more fish dropping out of the river, so there's not as if you're going up in the river, your days are numbered. There's mostly smaller fish up there, and it's thinning out more and more by the day. But outside the mouth, and then all on those beaches, and this is also the time of the year when that 50 line out off of Milford starts to light up with some bigger fish. I haven't actually heard a report to that effect, but within the next week or so, I would expect to hear, again, it's on that 50-foot marker out there. You hit that contour line, and for whatever reason, a lot of these big bass that leave the Hudson and kind of mill around outside Hempstead and whatnot, they start to make a beeline east, and they seem to travel that 50 line, and that area off of off of Milford seems to always have some fish. So I would that'd be a place I'd definitely be keeping an eye on. So let's move over to Fluke. Fluke is getting better in the Sound, but still it's not great. I'm just going to be honest with you, it's not great. We're hearing of some fish, Sarah's, Vixens. We're hearing of some fish, Long Sand Shoal, all those areas. Outside Narragansett Bay, there's been some fish there. Black Point, Hatchets, all of those areas have fish. But a lot of these fish, again, are short. And finding keepers takes a lot of work. Same story at Isabella. Same story at Peconic. Same story at Montauk. Same story at Block. You can run as far or as short as you want. You're still going to have to contend with a lot of short fish. But if you head to Montauk or Block, your chances are better at getting an impressive fish, an 8+ pounder. Out in the Western Sound, it's been more across the way, but they are filtering north, onto our side more and more. I don't think anybody is singing the praises of the fluke bite right now. I think guys that just love to fluke fish are just enduring, then they're going through a lot of shorts to do it. But they're there. And, the hardcore flukers, they don't seem to mind. You go out there and you put in your time and you enjoy yourself. And by the end of the day, you got your limit. That's kind of the game. I'm going to wrap it up with sea bassing, which has been great. The sea bass bite has been good in the Eastern Sound, but from like the Connecticut River west to Clinton, right in that area, has just been red hot. There's been a lot of nice fish taken there. There's been a lot of action there. There's also a lot of reefs and humps and bumps in there, a lot of targets. So, all the boats don't have to be knotted up on that one hot spot. And everything I've heard, I talked to TJ from Rock and Roll Charters, talked to a few other guys. I've read some emails, and everyone's been saying it's been good. They've been getting a lot of fish in that area. So to wrap things up in Connecticut, I'm going to throw it over to Max from Fisherman's World.
Just had 2 days off. We fished the last 2 days pretty hard. We had a lot of big fish right in our local waters off the islands. There's been a lot of big fish around the bait balls, a lot 11B, OB, 28C. Guys have cashed in on some nice fish now, dragging wire with spoons, mojo rigs, umbrellas, deep divers, and then live lining baits around the bunker schools. Also, there's been a lot of fish starting to move into the islands in the 20 to 25 pound class. We've seen a couple fish at night, guys chunking in the 40-inch range. So this should only get better as more and more bunker flood into our harbors and around the islands. Also, there's a lot of bluefish out there. I haven't seen this many bluefish in a couple of years now. You can find them finning on top in the mid-sound. or around the bunker schools, guys throwing poppers, SP minnows, spooks, you name it. There's been a really good weakfish bite going on too this past week. Places like 28C, the Bluefish Pit, Middle Passage around the islands, and in our harbor. Throwing small curly tails on jig heads or the small diamond jigs work well, also drifting sandworms. The fluke fishing has been so-so. I mean, there's some bigger fish being caught, but these guys are really weeding through shorts and a lot of sea robins to find these fish. On the backside of the islands like Can 24 and Can 26 would probably be your best bet locally, or the hump. Porgies have really flooded in our local waters now. You can find them virtually on any rock pile or wreck out there. Using clam chum will only help you increase your bag limit. The sea bass bite is still strong at 32A, but now there's sea bass all around the islands on our local wrecks and reefs. I would try wrecks outside Kakini and the Celtic wreck on top of 28. Thank you and good luck.
And that's the story in Connecticut. And we're just going to wrap up the video now with a word from Mike Caruso, the publisher of the Fisherman magazine, and he's just going to give you an update on the standings of the Dreamboat and the Kayak Challenge. Take it away, Mike.
Okay, the race is on and we're in full gear now as the competition heats up with the incredible Steigercraft 255 center console boat and many other great prizes from our Dreamboat sponsors. If you're not familiar, the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge is the Fisherman's season-long, region-wide, multi-species point-gathering fishing competition for active subscribers of the Fisherman magazine only. Get all the details on who's eligible, how to enter a fish, the prize information, the official rules, and to subscribe, go to thefisherman.com. Okay, so here's the latest updates for standings as of today, June 2nd, for the 2021 Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. In first place with 26 points, Joseph Yam. His largest fish is his third place 16.5 pound bluefish, but he's also entered two second place fish, a porgy and a sea robin. In second place with 18 points, it's Andreas Brundler. In third place with 15 points, it's Michael Briggs. And in fourth place, it's a previous Dreamboat Grand Prize winner, Dave Wiseman, with 11 points. The fish of the month for May is weakfish, and the largest fish entered this month was from Henry Piacentino, and it's a 7.58 pound fish caught on May 25th. It was weighed in at Chasing Tails Bait and Tackle. Henry wins a fish mount from Global Fish Mounts and an accurate turned star drag reel. In other Dreamboat news, we're starting to see some very, very nice fluke entries. Here's Casey Marachek with a 10.65 pounder weighed in at Rivers End Tackle for the first place position. And we're also seeing some very large, big, yellow-eyed bluefish entered, like this brute weighed in by Dean Paolella out of Springfield, New Jersey at 18 pounds and 5 ounces. It's, as of now, it is the first place bluefish in the Dreamboat. Okay, so now let's dive into the drama of another contest of ours, the Fisherman's Coastal Kayak Clash Competition, which is sponsored by Hobie Kayaks. All fish in this contest must be caught and entered by kayak anglers. Here are the standings as of today. We have a close race and the action is only going to get hotter. Like the Dreamboat Challenge, subscribers can enter their catch for several inshore species. However, rather than a competition for the heaviest fish, the Coastal Kayak Clash is all about, it's all based on the length of the fish. Okay, so here is the current top three standings positions. In first place, Justin Ulcer he has 9 points, and he has the top sea bass, and a second place sea robin, and a second place porgy to give him those 9 points. In second place, Eric Lopez, he has 8 points, and in third place it's Robert Wagner with 5 points. Get in on the action, my fisherman friends. Go to the website, learn how to enter and how to win, but remember you have to be a subscriber, so get out there and good fishing to all.
All right, so thanks for watching. And you know, as I say every week, if you're just watching the videos and you're not a subscriber yet, take a peek over at the website at thefisherman.com. We've got a lot to offer. We cover everything from Maine all the way down to Delaware. We cover all the species you can think of in there, fresh and salt water. We have reports that cover that entire range. As a subscriber, you get access to all those issues and all the reports and a lot more. Plus, like I said, we've got the Dreamboat, we've got the Kayak Challenge. We're giving away all kinds of prizes. It's we got a lot to offer. And at the very least, just throw us a like here on YouTube, and then give us a subscribe and hit that little bell down there so you can get a notification every time we post something new. And until next week, I wish you good luck out there. Looks like a great week for fishing, so get out there, catch some fish, take some pictures and send them to me, will you? At danderson@thefisherman.com. I love to see the pictures, and I need them. You know, they do me a lot of good in these video reports, and we have all kinds of other places we use them. So send them over to me, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.